Hi everyone, today we are talking with Tomas Rehor. He is a business-oriented software engineering leader with a great technical background and strong people management skills. He has been working in different startups, or corporate applications and enterprise applications. And we are really glad to have you here, Tomas, and that you can share your personal experience as an engineering manager and CTO, and of course, talk about what you are currently working in general, and of course, what are the tips and tricks that you have been learning during your work as a CTO during all these years. So, welcome, Tomas. How are you doing?
Hi, Ricardo. Thank you for having me. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. It's good to be here.
Good. So, Thomas, I know that I introduced yourself, of course, but maybe can you tell me how do you define yourself? How do you arrive to be a CTO of a startup? And yeah, what makes you to arrive to this? Is your passion to lead engineering teams, or how do you feel on that?
I think my passion is technology, building technology. That's the passion. And when I look back and I try to figure out what I'm the best at delivering technology, I realized that actually leading teams, building teams is what I'm best at. I'm not the best software engineer in the world. I've been decent, but at some point in my career, I realized that I don't want to go deeper in being a programmer. I rather enjoy leading teams, building products, and it's not necessarily the leading part that interests me the most. It's actually building the products, and you need a team for that. If you want to build a digital product, you need a team, and that's the part that I enjoy the most. Trying to understand the problem we are trying to solve, and motivate the team to deliver it. That's the part I enjoy the most. So that's how I would define myself. But deep under, I remain a geek. I started enjoying building technologies, programming when I was, I don't know, 7th grade, and ever since then I just try to keep that spark of trying to discover new things in me, regardless of what my job title says. Deep under, I'm a geek who likes to play with technologies, build new stuff.
Good. Well, you touch a lot of points that we will try to go deeper during our entire conversation. But meantime, I want to keep into, yeah, you said you are a geek. So how do you currently spend your time between your current role as a CTO of Zenbase and then maybe exploring new technologies? Yeah, if you can walk us through how a day in your life looks like, yeah, or mention if you have any framework for this or some way, or you just go as the day comes, let's say.
It's actually a very good question, since this current role at Zenbase is very different than what I was doing before. Right now, Zenbase is very early stage. I'm sure we will talk about it later, but it's very early stage. It's a small company. The engineering team is only 4 people. So being a CTO of 4 people, you need to be very hands-on. You need to be building stuff. So at this current moment, it's very easy for me to manage between being a leader and being hands-on, being the geek. As it turned out, what the company needed was a data engineer, data scientist, data analyst. So that's kind of me right now. We have software engineers who write the code, and I'm on top of the data. So it's a great learning for me, even though I have been mostly backend engineer in the past, and I've done my fair share of building databases, writing complex SQL queries. The landscape has changed since then. So I have to learn every day how to effectively build data pipelines in a modern startup like ours. of a startup that is fully hosted in a cloud. We are using Google Cloud. So I'm basically learning all the technologies that Google Cloud provides. I'm trying to learn what's new in the BI data science domain, and I like to say that I started as a junior data engineer at Zenbase. Now I'm maybe mid-level.
Good. So, I mean, your role as leading the team and, of course, leading a company, a product, you basically are learning every day something, right? So it's not that you know everything, and but that's the important thing: how to learn every day and tackle the challenges, maybe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. I know that in your LinkedIn you said that you like to talk about motivation, and I assume motivating the team to achieve the goals and challenges you can have. So maybe if you have, do you have any quote or anything that keeps you motivated in your everyday activities or something like that you remember, or how do you keep motivation in your everyday activities? Because sometimes, of course, it's a challenge when you are in the day-to-day, let's say, right?
Yeah, I'm in general, I'm not very good with remembering quotes. When we were at school, I hated the subjects where you had to memorize things like history and biology, where you really had to remember names. So I'm not very good at remembering quotes, but I like this one very much, since I'm practicing it almost daily, and it goes something like, those who say that something cannot be done should not stand in the way of those who are already doing it. And I think this is ingenious, and I like to live by it. But the funny thing is, that's why I like it the most. The funny thing is that I live by it while at work. I like to be very creative, disruptive at work, try things nobody tried before. I'm comfortable trying new things. While at home, it's often my wife who says this exact quote against me when I'm telling her something. Oh, we should not do it. This cannot be done. No, we should not dig that hole in the wall. It cannot be done. It will break. So she takes the drill herself and just start doing it just to show me that this quote is real. So this is what I try to live by. Always be curious. Always try new things, even when it seems impossible or it's not the beaten path yet.
Okay, so maybe your battery of creativity and disruption, of course, get out in the work, so you want to relax at home, right? So
yes.
And maybe not talking about quotes, but it's like, do you have any routines in your life about how to keep you mentally fit or healthy and so on, or do you don't practice any activities on that, or any hobbies that you like to disclose, if that's possible, of course?
I like to combine a routine with kind of free will. So doing things by chance, and I basically there are just some daily routines I do, taking my kids to school or kindergarten in the morning, having my meals at the regular cadence. This is what I try to keep very regularly every day. Eat 5 times a day at a similar time, so I feel comfortable physically. It's very important for my physical well-being, physical health. And then I to kind of keep my life interesting, I like to change things. So sometimes I would work in the morning from a cafe just to change the environment and get a new inspiration, new ideas. So I like to have this combination. The same thing is about tooling. I think that it would help me to be much more organized in terms of, let's say, task management, like have all my to-dos, everything prioritized, reviewed daily in some tool. I think it would make me more efficient person. But from mental health perspective, I actually need this freedom to just do whatever I just take advantage of serendipity. When I bump into somebody, when I have an idea, I want to explore it at that moment and not worry about all this bunch of other tasks I planned for that particular day. So I learned this routine that when I'm overly stressed out, when I know that I have deadlines, when I have to deliver something, I use task tracking tools for that. But I use it only for that absolutely necessary period. So let's say we have a deadline in 2 weeks, something needs to be delivered by me. I use for those 2 weeks, I would be using task tracking software for myself to stay on track. But after the deadline is done, I like to keep my life more loose. And this is where I strive the most, when I get the best ideas.
Yeah, sounds good. Of course, it's a good idea always to have time for serendipity and not to be package of activities every day, right? Maybe.
Yes, but it's difficult when you listen to podcasts and you listen to inspiring people, and many of them are so well organized. They use tools. They wake up at the same time every day, and they do activities before even having breakfast. I sometimes envy them, but then I always realize I'm not that type of person. That's for somebody else.
Yeah, especially if you are in winter times and so on. So I think personally, I struggle with that part of waking up really early during winters. In summer is easy, let's say, but yeah. So
yeah, waking up when it's dark
complicated.
outside is hard.
Yeah. So it's required, or you need to put a meeting really early. So it's like you have accountability with someone else or something like that.
Yes.
That's the way I try to hack it in that way. Good. So now if we move towards Zenbase, so we have mentioned, of course, you are the CTO of Zenbase. So what is Zenbase? What are you trying to solve as a problem? And what is the market where you are working on?
Okay. So I would start how Zenbase was actually founded. Because it's interesting, and also it kind of is connection how a guy from Prague is working on a product for the Canadian and US markets. I used to work at Skype, both here in Prague, where I'm living currently right now, and also in Palo Alto in California, where Skype had an office at the time. And I met our current founder of Zenbase, Koray, there. He was a product manager. I was engineering manager. We were working on the same project, And when I was moving with my family back to Europe, and he was leaving Skype for a different company, he said, "You know what? Once when I start my own startup, I will call you, and you will start the engineering team in Prague, because we had such a great time together. We were really clicking, connecting." He told me that, and I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And then 7 years later, he actually gave me a call when he founded his first startup, and he told me about the idea that he had and what is he building. So now back to the problem that we are trying to solve. He has had experience with fintech companies before, focusing on helping people refinance their debt through payroll deductions in the US, and they managed. It was kind of a mission-driven, purpose-driven business, and they really try to improve financial well-being of those families. I think it's a fair statement that financial education is within the general population is poor all around the world. That's why we have so many people financially struggling everywhere. So they really try to build a product to help these people who are struggling with their household finances. And he noticed one thing. He noticed that refinancing debt is one thing, But for most of the families, the biggest part of the budget they have to spend every month is rent. And it can be in some households, it can be easily over 30-40% of their income is spent on rent. And that's a huge burden, first of all. And second of all, if you add into the equation that people are getting paid twice per month in general in US and Canada, not once per month like it's standard in Europe, but twice per month, and more than 60% of households are living paycheck to paycheck, so they don't have any savings. They just whatever they earn, they spend. So if you are expected to pay your rent on the first of the month every month, it means a challenge for so many households, so many families. And there is another aspect that is very specific to US and Canada, which is their banking system and how the banking system works. Majority of people pay their rent via bank transfer, and it's called direct debit types of transfer. Basically, the landlord, you give your landlord your bank account information, and they are pulling the money from that bank account. The specific, I think this is pretty standard all around the world, but the specific of the US and Canadian system is that when they are trying to pull money and there is not enough balance on your account, they are going to charge you fee. And it's quite expensive fee. They call it NSF fee, non-sufficient funds fee. And it differs bank to bank. It's between $40 to $50 per one transaction. So imagine somebody is trying to pull your $1,000 rent. The money is not there at that day, and they're going to charge you $50. And then what happens next is that the landlord is going to charge you this even higher fee because it causes problems for them as well. So your landlord would charge you another, we are seeing between $90 to $100. We have one landlord who charges $200 for this fee. So basically paying late, not having the money at the right time is super expensive. It adds up the cost of living. It adds up to your cost of living. So that's the essential problem that we are trying to solve. We are trying to provide a tooling that will provide bigger flexibility in paying your rent and remove the NSF fees, remove the late fees, basically prevent families from paying these late fees. So in general, we are trying to build a platform and tooling that will now enable that. We have started in Canada because it's let's say a less fragmented market, so it's easier to for us to focus there. And we are working with large institutional landlords who offer our flexible rent payment solution to their residents, to their tenants. So we are a fintech company. We are very much mission driven, meaning we are not trying to build the most expensive fintech tool that we can get the most money out of. We are really trying to help the most vulnerable families on the market to manage their rent payments better with less cost, with less overhead cost for them. And we are trying to expand after we find the right fit in Canada, build the right product. We want to expand to the US.
Got it. So thanks for the story. So first of all, starting to work with a person that you collaborate 7 years before, so it's nice, and it's part of that serendipity, let's say, of life, right?
Yes.
That you didn't know that they will connect the dots after, right? As Steve Jobs used to say. Now that regarding the process of product market fit, so can maybe not only relate to Zenbase, but in your past job. So how is that process working for you guys? Like, how do you make sure that you have focus into solving the problem that you have mentioned of avoiding these late fees and so on, or these non-funding fees. And yeah, so how is the process working for you to decide what to build? Because I feel like, at least in my experience, sometimes there are, of course, too much feedback. Then it's hard to prioritize where to focus and how to filter out the stuff, because you have different stakeholders pushing you into their agendas, maybe, right? So what is your experience into this prioritization and finding that product market fit in, let's say, in the shortest time possible, let's say?
Yes. So first, we had to define which KPIs are important for what does it mean, product market fit? Which KPIs are going to watch, and which values mean we found the fit? Once we define those, I'm not gonna specifically tell which are those for us, as we like to keep them secret for now. But we define them. We define them very clearly. And when I joined Zenbase, it was actually already ongoing. There was already some development done, and there were already some customers on board. But the process was very much manual. There was so much manual work involved. You could not talk about automation very much. But it was good. It was on purpose. So it was kind of part of the prioritization process. You start manually. You use tons of spreadsheets if you need to, just to keep yourself organized. They are easy to build, quick to build if your scope is small. If your scale is small as well, then you just observe. You observe what's happening. Our business is very monthly centric. The rent has to be paid on the first of the month. Our users have to complete all their payments before the end of previous month. So it's very heavy around the end of the month and beginning of the month. So you kind of focus on that and observe the process, observe the behavior of users, observe the use cases, see what's happening. And then as your customer base grows and you see that you keep repeating these specific types of manual activities over and over, that's where you automate. This is when you say, okay, so if I automate this, I will gain 10x of my time back. And then there might be some processes or cases that you thought you would want to automate, but they are maybe happening only once or twice or 3 times per month. And you say, okay, so I would have to spend, 2 weeks on developing that, but it would give me back only maybe 30 minutes of time back every month. So I'm not going to invest into it now. I'm going to invest to it later when it will become the pain point. So I guess my advice, and this is what we try to follow with each prioritization round. We start small, really little, even if it means that you limit your audience. Maybe your MVP could you could reach out to thousands of users, but that also means you have to build a product that will withstand thousands of users. In our case, in our business, which is very process heavy, it's much better to start with 100 users with the manual process, observe how do these 100 users behave, and then build automation and build kind of the final version of the product only for the for what's important, what we found out was important. So that's what we try to live by, and we do so many experiments. We deliver quickly. We are not afraid to delete things or stop operating things that don't work. That's kind of also important part of the whole thing, that you constantly reiterate. And from the code perspective, as a software engineer, you also continuously refactor. Anytime we try to use the same approach with engineering. The first design is the simplest possible, and then when we start seeing things that are not working out, we go and refactor them. And it's not something we would have to prioritize actively, we would have to go and say, oh, now we will stop everything and we will go and refactor this part. We just refactor it as ongoing part of the work. Whatever is working, some of the simple design things we have until now, there was absolutely no reason to change them. Some of them we have refactored, some of them we still have to refactor. So we try to use this approach not only from the business prioritization, but also from the technical prioritization perspective.
Okay. So you have talked several stuff where we can go deep. So, but then you mentioned there is some prioritization round, or do you currently, as an early startup, have some kind of product pipeline, or as you say, you are just waiting for the amount of data or to give you actual more guidelines where to go? So, because at least on my experience, I feel like, of course, from the point of view maybe of investors or the CEOs or other stakeholders, they want to have a plan somehow, right, of 3 months, 6 months, or whatever. But then is a world really uncertain regarding building a product in the early stage? So how do you balance that planning versus waiting for data, and that, of course, that the other stakeholders are really on board into, okay, hey guys, we need to wait for more data, or we need to test this first, or
So I'm happy to say that our kind of planning process has not changed since the beginning, which is a good sign. And we have basically two kind of types of events or milestones that we try to keep. One of them is monthly. We call it all hands meeting, but it's since we are very small, it kind of involves the product roadmap revision, and this is the moment where we look, let's say, maybe 3-6 months ahead. Like what are the big milestones, big goals we want to deliver. But at the same time, we know that many of them are depending on business development. It's not only by us, but on other parties as well. So we cannot forecast how fast some negotiations will go, how fast our partners will be able to act. So we keep it there as kind of nice to have roadmap, but we know that it will look the reality will look completely different. But it's important to have it, not only for external players like the investors you mentioned. It's also important for us to kind of feel rooted that now we are here and this is the vision where we go. This is the direction. So unless there will be big changes, big disruptions, this is the way we go. And once we have this, we have our weekly planning meetings, which basically are much more focused. They are much more low level. We talk about individual tasks, individual features, but at the same time, I think that's one of the benefits that you get from a small company, that we don't need. Basically, from kind of the work organization perspective, our organizational structure is very flat. So each of the engineers, they manage their own backlogs themselves. It's important for the planning meeting. It's important to understand what kind of is their priority for the week, kind of, and then during the week, they all manage their work on their own. I'm not telling them today you should work on this, next day you should work on that. I would rather prefer when they understand the priorities for the week, and then the micro prioritization, micromanagement, they do just self-management themselves. This framework, which is not, it's very loose framework, gives us enough flexibility to change the direction whenever we need. Even after we plan the week, it's totally possible that next day somebody will come and will say, "Guys, we really need to build this now because it gives us this. It would give us this advantage." This is very important, and this is regardless of team size. When you are changing priorities, it always needs to come with an explanation why. what is the, I mean, mid work. So if you ask somebody, stop your work, what you're doing now you have to do this, that there needs to be very good explanation why. What is the business reasoning, why you do that? And then it's so much easier for the person to accept and understand it, and that they would adjust easily. So that's how we do it. And then when you plan to integrate with a new partner, when you plan to integrate with a new vendor, whenever you kind of keep yourself ready. So we have done our preparation. Now we are here and we are waiting for them to be ready. And this period between we are ready and they are ready can be anywhere between a couple of days to a couple of months. Sometimes you just scratch whatever you built because the business negotiation didn't go well, and you scrap that project entirely, and that's okay as well. So that's how we do it. I would say, if I should end this with one thought, it's equally important for everybody in the company to understand the vision. When you are this size, it's maybe multiple times more important than in a bigger company, and it's also multiple times easier to achieve it. But that's what we live by. We have this level of transparency that everybody in the company understands where we are right now, where are we going, what are the forecasts.
Good. Yeah, thanks for going deeper into this subject. So, and of course, you mentioned that in some part of our conversation that, of course, you need a team to build a digital product. So maybe because part of our audience is people who wants to start a business or a tech business, right? So what are your recommendations towards, if you are an early stage startup, which are the first team members that a tech business needs? So it's a CTO, it's a designer, it's an engineer. So just put it into the context, of course, of a software as a service, for example, company. So what would be your recommendation, where to start? Because I know that at least in Zenbase, the team was already there when you joined, right? But you were happy with the team already, so meaning that the structure of the roles, or you needed to involve other roles that there was no present of them in that moment.
This is a very good question, and I would start with a little bit generic answer that there is no single answer to this. I think it heavily depends on the type of business, and I would say the kind of critical feature or the mission critical feature. If you are trying to build an AI business, of course, you need to start with data scientists and basically people who are capable of building the core part of your product, basically, of your future product. You don't start with designers and front-end engineers. You can even outsource that part for that sake, if your core product is so good. So it's important to understand what is the core feature of your product, and then try to think, who do you need to build that? Ideally, and that's how many companies have started. Your technical co-founder, your CTO, head of engineering, whatever you call this role, basically the first technical person would be able to build that core functionality. If you are lucky enough to find that person, or you already have this person as a co-founder, then it's great, right? You need very little money, very little resources to build the core functionality. Then when you kind of have the very minimal proof of concept, prototype, MVP, you can think about expanding the team, growing the team, and I would say this is a little bit of generalization, but I would say that at the beginning, it's better to have, if you have limited resources, limited money, it's better to invest into software engineers, into the core team that is going to build that product. And maybe it's easier to outsource, let's say, design At the beginning, design is probably not the most important part of the business. It's if you will be selling your product just by how it looks, not what it can do, it will probably not sustain for too long. Customers will find out pretty soon that it looks nice, but it does nothing. It cannot do what it's supposed to do. So I think it's better to invest into building the core functionality, and design can be outsourced. I know that maybe some people will not agree with me, and there will be very good use cases, but this is not true as well. But this is true for Zenbase. Until now, we don't have a designer. We are outsourcing this capability. We used an agency to build a little minimalistic design framework for us, and we use that for all new feature development. So we have our design components in Figma, and Koray, our founder, is acting as a product manager, and he's also the head designer. He's also designing the features in Figma by dragging different design components together. So you can kind of cheat at the beginning on these functionalities, and by building your core muscle, the core product. So that's probably something I would. Maybe I can just summarize how do the functions in Zenbase currently work. So our founder and CEO is acting as a product manager. We have 3 software engineers. I'm the leader of the engineering team, and that's pretty much it. We have COO / CMO who is taking care of marketing and the operations. So this is already non-engineering function. So our engineering team basically has 5 people, where the product manager is shared is the CEO. And even though it has some downsides, that he cannot focus fully, that he's not full-time product manager, so he cannot go as deep into some of the product design process as a fully dedicated product manager would go. There is also the great benefit that he has the full concept of the product in his head. He was the founder. He invented he came with the idea with the product, and he has all the context he needs. So the decisions he's doing are so fast. We don't wait for any synchronization between product manager and other stakeholders. It's a very fast creative process when we come up with new ideas, and we are able to make decisions, very fundamental decisions, very, very fast as a team. So that was kind of long answer. I hope did I answer everything that you wanted to hear about this?
Yeah, of course, it makes sense. If I may challenge you on the topic, of course, I believe that sometimes, well, I'm sometimes mentoring as early stage startups, but then at least what I'm seeing is that they are always looking for a CTO as a first hire, or a person with a technical background, right? But then I feel, at least in my experience, is that if you are building a product that is going to be for consumers or even for businesses right now, B2C or B2B, I feel like design is a really important component that I mean, I believe, or it should be really a co-founder of the company, or at least being active as a hire. Because what I'm trying to say is, because I've seen companies fail because at the beginning they just have a developer, and the developer coded something but is not having the best process or workflow, and then the users are rejecting the feature or the application, not because it's not a problem that it's solving, it's because it doesn't work in the correct workflow, or it's not really good design. Because design is not about how it looks, it's how it works. Because at the end, at least from my experience, it's like the developers really, of course, they can solve the engineering, but they are not designers who will define what is the less clicks path to solve a problem, or what is the So at least my feeling is that, of course, into a product will have a user interface and so on, right? Maybe an API or something, right? Like it's not, of course, you don't need maybe a designer, right? But so, I mean, I understand that there is no one answer fits everything, right? What I'm trying to say is that, of course, in the best case scenario would be to have both people, right? A designer and developer working together if you have the resources. But yeah, of course, that's part of the game. Is like the egg and the chicken, what goes first. And also because, at least on my experience, I've seen that I would prefer to kind of validate if a product works properly on a clickable prototype than going and coding, because then of course it costs more time and money, right? So what is your feeling into this comment? Like, yeah, I know it's difficult to answer, but it's more like, yeah, have you managed to test a product before actually coding, or you consider that doesn't give you a correct feedback from the audience, let's say, or it needs to be coded, it needs to be real to actually get good feedback, let's say?
I think this is very valid and very valid point. Basically, doing the coding, programming the functionality is the most expensive part of the process. You need to pay expensive software engineers to get it out there. It takes time and it takes money. Prototyping, wireframing, let's say in Figma or some other tool, is I think is must have for software companies, for SaaS companies. That's where you verify that the audience understands what they are trying to do. It's also good design. It's also the cheapest documentation. Some companies spend tons of time and money on creating tutorials, explanatory videos. This is how you should use our product. But if you have a good UX design, you don't have to do that. People just figure out what they have to do. So I'm totally 100% supporting doing design prototyping, and a little bit of research. How does the prototype work? And for this, I would step back to Pipedrive, which was the company I was working before. Mm-hmm. And I think that the design and research team at Pipedrive, this was the top notch. This was the best design and research team I have been working with in my past. Everything that we wanted to build was first prototyped and user tested. And there was always great feedback sessions shared not only within the product team, but also with the software engineers. So before we start a new product, we would have this kind of project. We would have this kickoff meeting where there were the product managers, also the product designers and researchers. And they would be presenting. They would start with presenting. Typically, the product manager would start with presenting the problem through data. So they would show, this is the problem we are trying to solve. This is the data that we have about it. And now let's talk about the proposed design solution that we have. And then the designer would take over, and they would talk about how did they think about the design of the problem, of the solution of the problem. And how did they create? Often there were multiple versions that they would create, and then the product researcher, would take over, and they would say, "We have run this research on." So there would be typically a survey they would send out, and then the most expensive part of research are just one-on-one sessions between the researcher and the potential customers. Walking through the clickable prototype. So there would be not so many of those in quantity. But there would be maybe 10 recorded sessions, and they would pinpoint the highlights of that research. And they would say, so based on the feedback we have received, this is the final approach we would like to take. This is the final design we picked, and this is why we are going to build it this way. And then when you present this to the whole team at the beginning, everybody knows the full context. And then when they work on it, they first of all, they don't circle back so much with questions like, why does it work this way and not that way? I think this way would be better, because they already know the answer. And also they can do some micro decisions that would normally require circling back with the designer or with the product manager by themselves, simply because they know the full context. So kind of long answer, but I totally believe in this design process. All those roles I mentioned require a bigger team, so they are not very fit, or it's expensive to do in a very small startup. I think in a very small startup, it's cheaper to do what I was saying earlier. Build maybe a facade, build just the UI, the application UI, and then manage the processes behind it in a manual way. Maybe just capture data to spreadsheets and then manage them in spreadsheets. That's also, I think, a legit way of testing an approach and validating product or business idea.
Got it. Yeah, sounds good. So thanks for your comment into that. Yeah, of course. If we live in the perfect world, it would be that every startup have all the budget to have the perfect team, but of course it takes time, right? Then talking more about how do you create your team still now? What are the values and skills that you value more for your company? How as an engineering team, and so yeah, if you can comment into that, when you are looking for a developer, what you are looking for for them.
Maybe this is also a good pivot back to what you were asking earlier. What is the difference between smaller companies and bigger companies, in what kind of people they need? What would be the first hire? So I think that's also important here, knowing which company are you hiring for. Obviously, you know that you are part of that company, but I think there is a different. I'm definitely looking for different type of people for Zenbase than I was looking, let's say, at Pipedrive. In early stage, it's much more important to hire people who are more generalists, who can do more types of tasks. Maybe a little bit worse than a specialist, but good enough for the startup needs. So if I would be speaking about software engineering terms, I would be looking for full stack developers who are capable of working both on the front end, both on the back end. They are able to do some system design. They are able to design databases. They are able to pick the right technologies for the task. So kind of all around people, definitely not suitable for junior engineers. It's in my opinion, it's much more efficient to rather wait and find fewer full stack developers who are more senior than just hire less experienced engineers and hire maybe more of them because they sound cheaper. Hire more of them to get started with. If you have nobody experienced who can actually coach them, mentor them, teach them, then you will end up with a kind of poor solution. So quick answer, what I'm looking for is more experienced people who, from the technological perspective, can work on the full stack, and so that's much more important at this stage. And once this criteria is matched, I'm looking for somebody who believes in the product. And in such a small company, I think it's ever more important than in bigger ones that the person understands the product we are building, and they understand why it's important. Because in such a small company, there will be so much up and downs that you don't want. Basically, you want the believing in the mission to hold the people during the downs when things are not so great, when maybe we have some quality problems, incidents. The business growth is maybe not so fast as you thought. This is the moment when the motivation it's important to keep the people in the company, to keep going, because they believe in the end mission. So that's how I look at who am I going to hire now. And I would just say that in a bigger company, let's say Pipedrive, the main difference was that we were also looking at a specialist. Sometimes you want to have a really good front-end developer who focuses just on front-end technologies, because you need to build that platform that the rest of the company will be depending on. And for that, you need really experienced, focused front-end engineers who are capable of building a platform, who can think, okay, how am I going to build this so it's comfortable for other developers to use as well. And the same goes for backend developers. So basically, you are often hiring also specialists, and it's okay to have these specialists in a bigger team. In a smaller company, having a specialist can be a downside often, because you might not have always work for them.
Great. So, well, there are too many topics, and we're close to like 10 minutes maximum. If you is it okay for you, 10 minutes more?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, so of course, based on your answers, of course, we can go deeper into a lot of topics, but maybe for now, you mentioned that in the early stage startup, you need people who believe in the product and the mission or the vision of the product. So currently, you said, okay, you are located in Prague, but then the business is in US, in Canada mainly at the moment. So how do you achieve that when maybe the people cannot resonate completely with the problem in Canada? And how do you, because I myself, I live that. I am running an engineering team that the startup headquarters are in Norway. And then it's a challenge sometimes because I am not there, right, with the customers. So it's a challenge to feel their own pain, right, and be in their own shoes. So how do you try to navigate this issue with remote location in there as yourself, and of course as the team of engineering?
This is a big problem, and I at the beginning, when I tried to pitch the idea of joining Zenbase to some developers, their response would be, "I'm not interested. The problem is too remote for me. It doesn't resonate with me," which is a valid answer. So it first of all, it narrows down your pool of people that would be interesting, but nevertheless it's still important. Even if you think, oh, this is a great developer, I know this guy, he would be a great addition to the team. If the mission doesn't resonate with him, he would leave within a couple of months. So it's a good filter, I would say. Still be transparent about it. This is the problem we are trying to solve. And then I try to twist it. I try to think, what is it that makes me interested in this project? What resonates with me? And for my primary motivation why working at Zenbase is that during my career, I've always tried to work on a global, impactful product. My first global company I worked at was Skype. It had at the end billions of users worldwide. It was very widely used, and I really enjoyed that. That any change I'm gonna do, it's gonna impact so many people. It felt really good. Then kind of the next big product that I was working on was Pipedrive, which was also impacting 100,000 businesses all around the world. It was really making their life better. But I was thinking, okay, but it's a tool for salespeople. So when I was looking for my next job, I thought I want it to be something meaningful, something with a bigger mission, something mission driven. And that's when Kurai started pitching me the idea of Zenbase. There was this immediate click, because I know from the news where I live here in Czech Republic how many people struggle with their finances. how many people struggle with financial education. Just doing the right basic decisions, financial decision in the right, they struggle with that. So this part resonates with me even when it's happening in Canada and in US. I can feel it's a social problem. It affects the whole society. And when 60% of the population in the US lives paycheck to paycheck, it's a huge, in absolute numbers, it's a huge number of people. So I thought, okay, so I can work maybe for a local company here, trying to solve some local problems that would improve lives of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, or I can scale it up to tens of millions of people. And that's what kind of made me decide that I want to work in Zenbase and try to make this different in life for so many people. And this is what I'm trying to pitch to all the other developers. I learned to use some local examples, local numbers, like how many people are struggling here, and then I kind of transfer the problem abroad, explain the same numbers. Explain the problem in US and Canada, and then it's up to the candidate, up to the person if it resonates with them or not.
Yeah, it makes sense always to bring it to their common ground, let's say what they understand in the local context as well. Yeah. Good. Now, as a final point for today, so I know that, of course, you are a busy guy. So, but what do you follow? Any podcasts, books, or other resources to keep on learning by yourself, or how do you feel into that? Do you have any recommendations to follow?
I found myself addicted to Lex Friedman's podcast lately, and it's kind of taxing because each of his episodes have at least 3 hours. He goes really deep and has really long interviews, but I enjoy it so much. So that would be my single recommendation. If somebody doesn't know him, I really recommend trying. I like his calming voice and his curiosity, and also the widespread of topics. So that's the part that I listen to the most right now, and I also started. I have a personal change in my life ongoing. I realized that I have to do something about my eating habits and lose some weight and become a fitter person. I guess it comes up with the age. I'm 43 this year, and I thought, I don't want to become this old, slow, fat guy. I really need to do something about myself. So I also started studying and reading books about metabolism, aging, and I basically when I want something meaningful in some meaningful change in my life, I need to understand the principles, the core things. As I said earlier, I'm not good at memorizing things, but once I understand the principle, I know it forever. So that's what I'm doing right now as well, trying to understand how metabolism works and how I can eat healthier and sustainably going forward.
Great. So maybe while I have a comment on that, there is this guy called David Sinclair, which I don't know if you have listened to it already. So he's a lot about this into reverse aging and metabolism and all the topics on this, let's say, biohacking or whatever on that topic. It's a big genre, let's say. So just if you have a chance, just check it out.
Yeah, there is a lot of content on that. It's very popular, and also a lot of different different streams. You can choose which way you want to go. So I'm starting actually from the basics. I'm trying to understand some scientific facts about how metabolism works before I add one layer on top of that about biohacking.
Good. And maybe another question more related to your personal life, but how do you balance, like you said, you have kids, so how do you balance your work with family living. So do you have any tips into that for people who are starting a company or working in an early stage startup, which of course is a lot of work, but and try to keep your life healthy?
I'm sure my wife would give you a different answer than I'm giving you. I like to keep conscious decisions about when I'm working harder, when I'm pushing longer hours, when I invest more time, and when I take a break. I think it's very important to when you push harder, then also have this kind of break. I've been through some really rough periods in the past when I was pushing too hard without the break, and then I had no energy to continue to do anything. So I guess my strategy is to carefully pick when I'm going to work harder. What are the kind of the milestones that I need to deliver? What is important for the business? Then I also kind of explain it at home to my wife and to my older kids. She already talks to me about these things. Sometimes she calls me at 7 p.m. Where are you, Dad? I want you at home. So I have to explain also to them why is it important for me now to work maybe a little bit later, and then I promise them a little bit more family time when times are good. So I think as an entrepreneur, it's important to understand what are the key things that are gonna push your business to the next level, and it makes sense to kind of push hard on them to deliver it faster. And then there's this period of collecting data, right? You push something and you need to understand, was it the right thing? Is it working? So during this period of collecting data, I think it's okay to take a break, also spend more time with the family, and pay them back and recharge energy for the next push.
Okay, sounds good. So I think this is a great comment to finish the podcast for today. So thank you very much, Tomas. So all the best in your journey and all the process to achieve success with Zenbase and help a lot of people in Canada and US. And well, glad as well to talk about product development and all the processes that you have done till now. So how can people reach you out as well? So if they have any further questions or want to meet you in Prague for a beer or a smoothie, since we are going to start with a more healthy life.
The best channel is LinkedIn. I use it as my professional social network, and if you look me up on LinkedIn, that's the best way to reach out.
Okay, so as I said, thank you very much, Tomas, for your time, and all the best. And we keep talking.
Thank you. You too, Ricardo. Bye bye.
See you.